Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it. I stared at the email, the words blurring together as the enormity of my situation settled in. The subject line, urgent meeting with Ryan, struck a chord of dread deep within me. My fingers trembled as I clicked open the message, and the short, curt text only amplified my anxiety. Meet me in my office at 2 p.m. sharp. Do not be late. Signed, Ryan, the president's son and the bane of Industry Corp. The clock on my computer read 1:45 p.m. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I had known this day might come, but I had hoped it wouldn't. My father was seriously ill, his medical bills piling up faster than I could pay them. The half days I had taken to accompany him to his treatments had not gone unnoticed, and Ryan had made it clear he saw me as nothing more than a drain on the company. At 1:58 p.m., I stood outside Ryan's office, smoothing down my wrinkled shirt and wiping my sweaty palms on my trousers. I knocked twice, the sound echoing ominously in the empty hallway. "Come in," Ryan's voice called out, dripping with impatience. I opened the door and stepped inside. Ryan sat behind his massive oak desk, his eyes already on me with a look of disdain. His office was a shrine to corporate excess, with expensive art pieces on the walls and a view of the city skyline that spoke of power and privilege. "Terry," he began without preamble, "you're fired." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "But why?" "You're a salary thief," he interrupted, his tone cold and cutting. "Taking too many half days off, barely contributing to the team. You're more trouble than you're worth." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Ryan, please. My father is seriously ill. I need this job to pay for this treatment. I'll work harder, I promise. Just give me another chance." Ryan leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "Harder? You've been a temp for too long. It's time we cut our losses. Pack your things and leave. Security will escort you out." Humiliation and desperation welled up inside me, but I knew there was no point in arguing further. Ryan had made up his mind. I nodded, muttering a defeated "thank you for the opportunity," before turning on my heel and leaving his office. As I walked back to my desk to collect my things, I couldn't help but feel a wave of anger and helplessness. The office buzzed with activity, but it all felt distant, like I was moving through a fog. My colleagues avoided my gaze, either too busy or too afraid to acknowledge my plight. Ryan's toxic influence had poisoned the entire company. While I was packing up my desk, I overheard snippets of conversations that made my heart sink even further. "Did you hear? Terry got the boot." "Yeah, Ryan's at it again. He's cleaning house. Poor guy, but what can you do? It's Ryan's way or the highway." I stuffed the last of my personal items into a cardboard box, trying to ignore the pitying looks and whispered condolences. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Linda, a senior developer who had always been kind to me. "This isn't fair, Terry," she said softly, her eyes filled with concern. "You don't deserve this." "I know, Linda, but there's nothing I can do." Ryan's made up his mind. "Maybe we can talk to HR or even the president. There has to be a way to fight this." I shook my head. "You know how things work around here. Ryan has his father's ear. They won't listen to us." Linda sighed, squeezing my shoulder reassuringly. "Well, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call me. We're all going to miss you." "Thanks, Linda. That means a lot." With my box in hand, I made my way to the exit. Security was waiting, just as Ryan had promised. They escorted me out of the building, and I felt the eyes of the entire office on my back as I left. Outside, the city seemed colder, more indifferent than ever. I stood on the sidewalk, clutching the box, wondering what I would tell my father. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, but I knew I had to keep moving. I had to find a way to make things right, for his sake and mine. Arriving home, I immediately laid down on the sofa and could not sleep for a long time. Thoughts and memories of the last half a year of work climbed into my head, half a year of a nightmare. Ryan's arrival at Industry Corp was like a dark cloud blotting out the sun. From the moment he stepped into the office, things began to change, and not for the better. He strutted through the halls with an air of entitlement, his every move a reminder of his untouchable status as the president's son. It didn't take long for the work environment to deteriorate under his so-called leadership. Initially, Ryan's changes were subtle, a few schedule tweaks here, a new policy there. But soon, his real agenda became clear. He was reshuffling the staff, often with no regard for their skills or experience. He seemed to take a perverse pleasure in assigning people to tasks they were ill-equipped to handle, watching them flounder under the pressure. I remember the first time I really felt the impact of his toxic influence. It was a Monday morning, and the atmosphere in the office was already tense. I was at my desk, buried in a mountain of work, when Ryan strolled in, his usual smug grin plastered on his face. "Listen up, everyone," he called out, clapping his hands for attention. "We're implementing a new schedule starting today. Overtime will be mandatory for the next 3 weeks. We have a product launch coming up, and I expect everyone to give 110%. A collective groan rippled through the office. We had all been working long hours already, and the thought of even more overtime was almost too much to bear. I glanced around, seeing the exhaustion and frustration etched on my colleagues' faces. Ryan, Linda, always the brave one, spoke up. "We've been working overtime for months. People are burning out. We need some time to recharge, or the quality of our work will suffer." Ryan's grin widened, his eyes glinting with malice. "Quality? What do you know about quality, Linda? You're just a developer. I'm running this ship, and if I say we need more overtime, then that's what we need. If anyone has a problem with that, they can find another job." The room fell silent. No one dared to challenge him further. It was clear that Ryan's word was law, and any dissent would be swiftly punished. The days that followed were a blur of stress and exhaustion. Ryan's unreasonable demands only increased, and the office turned into a pressure cooker of pent-up frustration. The once vibrant and collaborative environment became toxic, filled with whispered complaints and a palpable sense of dread. One afternoon, I was in the break room, trying to grab a quick coffee before diving back into my endless tasks. Mike joined me, looking as haggard as I felt. "Terry, this place is falling apart," he said, shaking his head. "Ryan's driving everyone crazy. Did you hear about Sarah?" I nodded, my heart sinking. Sarah had been one of the best project managers at Industry Corp, but she had handed in her resignation that morning, citing personal reasons. We'd all knew the real reason, though. Ryan's relentless harassment had pushed her to the breaking point. "Yeah, it's a mess," I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. "But what can we do? Ryan's untouchable." Mike sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know. But if things don't change soon, more people are going to leave. I'm already thinking about it myself." His words echoed my own thoughts. The job I had once been so proud of had become a nightmare, and I was seriously considering my options. But with my father's medical bills mounting, I couldn't afford to be without an income. One evening, after another grueling day, I returned home to find my father sitting at the kitchen table, looking more frail than ever. He smiled weakly as I entered, but his eyes were filled with concern. "Terry, you look exhausted," he said softly. "You're working too hard." I forced a smile, trying to hide my fatigue. "I'm fine, Dad. Just a lot going on at work." He shook his head, reaching out to take my hand. "I know you're doing all this for me, but I don't want you to destroy yourself in the process. Your health is just as important." His words hit me hard. I had been so focused on keeping my job and paying the bills that I hadn't stopped to consider the toll it was taking on me. I squeezed his hand, trying to hold back my tears. "I'll be okay, Dad. I promise." That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about my father's words. I knew I had to find a way out of this toxic environment, but I didn't know where to start. The breaking point came a few days later during a staff meeting. Ryan was in rare form, berating the team for a missed deadline, even though the delay was due to his constant changes and micromanagement. "You're all useless," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "If you can't handle the pressure, then maybe you don't belong here." Perhaps my dismissal was just the reason to get rid of the toxic environment of Industry Corp. After leaving Industry Corp, I spent the next few weeks in a state of limbo. Each day felt like an eternity, filled with anxiety about finding a new job and the looming medical expenses for my father. My nights were restless, haunted by the uncertainty of the future. But amidst the chaos, I held onto a thread of hope, that things would eventually get better. One morning, while sipping a cup of lukewarm coffee and scrolling through job listings, an advertisement caught my eye. Green Tech Co., a well-known game company and a direct rival to Industry Corp., was hiring programmers. My heart skipped a beat. This was a chance to not only find a new job, but to work in a supportive environment and do what I loved most, developing games. I applied immediately, tailoring my resume to highlight my experience and passion for game development. Days later, I received an email inviting me for an interview. I could hardly believe my luck. The interview was scheduled for the following week, and I spent every moment preparing, determined to make a good impression. Green Tech Co.'s headquarters was a stark contrast to the oppressive environment of my previous job. The lobby was filled with natural light, and the walls were adorned with colorful artwork that exuded creativity and positivity. The receptionist greeted me warmly and directed me to the interview room, where I met President Burnett and Ms. Lopez, the head of development. "Welcome, Terry," President Burnett said, extending her hand. "We're excited to learn more about you." "Thank you," I replied, shaking her hand. "I'm grateful for this opportunity." Ms. Lopez smiled encouragingly. "We've reviewed your resume and your work at Industry Corp. Can you tell us more about your experience and what you hope to achieve here at Green Tech Co.?" I took a deep breath and shared my story, including the challenges I faced at Industry Corp and my passion for game development. "I believe in creating games that bring joy and connection to people," I concluded. "And I'm looking for a place where I can grow and contribute meaningfully." President Burnett nodded thoughtfully. "We appreciate your honesty, Terry. We value a healthy work environment and are committed to supporting our team members. We'd be happy to have you join us." A wave of relief washed over me. "Thank you so much. I won't let you down." On my first day, the atmosphere at Green Tech Co. was everything I had hoped for. My new colleagues, Daisy, Raj, and Linda, welcomed me with open arms, and I quickly felt at home. The collaborative spirit and mutual respect among the team members were invigorating. A few weeks into my new job, I received a call from the hospital. My father's condition had worsened, and he needed immediate surgery. The cost of the procedure was beyond my means, and I felt a familiar sense of despair creeping in. That evening, I stayed late at the office, hoping to catch up on work and distract myself from my worries. Ms. Lopez noticed my distress and approached me. "Terry, is everything okay?" I hesitated, then decided to share my burden. "My father needs surgery, and I can't afford it. I'm worried about losing him." Ms. Lopez's expression softened. "Terry, you're part of our family now. Let us help you. We'll cover the medical expenses." I was stunned. I don't know what to say. "Thank you." "There's no need to thank us," she said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Just focus on your father. We'll take care of the rest." The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Thanks to the generosity of Green Tech Co., my father underwent the surgery he desperately needed. I spent every moment I could at the hospital, my heart pounding with both fear and hope. Finally, the surgeon emerged from the operating room with a smile. "The surgery was a success. Your father is stable and on the road to recovery." Tears of relief streamed down my face. I thanked the surgeon and rushed to my father's side. Seeing him awake and gradually regaining strength was the greatest gift I could have asked for. Back at Green Tech Co., my colleagues continued to support me in ways I never imagined. Daisy brought homemade meals to the hospital, while Raj and Linda organized a fundraiser to cover any additional expenses. The outpouring of kindness and solidarity was overwhelming. One evening, President Burnett pulled me aside. "Terry, how's your father doing?" "He's improving every day," I replied, my voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you all enough." She smiled warmly. "We're just glad to see you and your father doing well. Remember, we're here for you, no matter what." With my father's health steadily improving, I threw myself into my work with renewed vigor. The projects at Green Tech Co. were challenging and rewarding, and the supportive environment allowed me to thrive. One day, during a critical phase of development, we encountered a significant bug that threatened to derail our project. "Everyone, gather around," I called out, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. "We need to tackle this issue head-on and find a solution together." The team rallied, working late into the night to identify the root of the problem and implement a fix. The sense of camaraderie and determination was palpable, and we managed to resolve the issue just in time. The project was a success, and the feeling of accomplishment was exhilarating. As we celebrated our victory, President Burnett approached me. "Great job, Terry. Your dedication and problem-solving skills have been invaluable. We're lucky to have you." "Thank you," I replied, feeling a surge of pride and gratitude. I couldn't have done it without the support of this amazing team. The bond with my colleagues grew stronger each day, and Green Tech Co. became more than just a workplace. It was a family. Together, we faced challenges, celebrated victories, and supported each other through thick and thin. The toxic shadows of Industry Corp were a distant memory, replaced by a future filled with hope, camaraderie, and endless possibilities. The aftermath of my departure from Industry Corp was a maelstrom of chaos and mismanagement. Ryan's reign of terror had left the company teetering on the brink of collapse. His dictatorial style, marked by arrogance and a blatant disregard for the well-being of his employees, had driven away some of the company's best talent. Those who remained were overworked, demoralized, and rapidly losing faith in their leadership. Morale hit an all-time low, and the turnover rate spiked. Employees who once took pride in their work now dreaded coming to the office. One afternoon, President Douglas, the founder and former head of Industry Corp, returned from his medical leave. His once strong and confident demeanor was now tempered by the fragility of recent health issues, but his eyes still held a spark of determination. He called an emergency board meeting. President Douglas said very stiffly, "Your decisions have cost us dearly, Ryan. You ignored the advice of your team, prioritized deadlines over quality, and created a toxic work environment. Effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties as head of Industry Corp." President Douglas turned to the remaining board members. "We have a lot of work to do to repair the damage. I will be resuming my role as president temporarily while we search for a suitable replacement. In the meantime, I need your full support to turn this company around." The board members nodded, relieved and hopeful for the first time in months. President Douglas' return sparked a renewed sense of purpose. He held a company-wide meeting the next day, addressing the employees with sincerity and humility. Meanwhile, at Green Tech Co., my life had found a new rhythm. My father's recovery continued to progress, and I threw myself into my work with renewed vigor. The camaraderie and support I found there were unparalleled, and I knew I had found a place where I could truly thrive. Ryan's downfall was imminent, and it shaped the very foundations of the gaming industry. But for now, I was content, knowing that I had found a place where I could truly thrive, and where my father's life was no longer in danger.